Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Talkin Kop. It is a Friday night, and I am your host, Matt. I am joined by Kev O'Sullivan. We're going to take a little look around the news of the day in the Premier League and then do a little bit of match preview ahead of Liverpool's match against Burnley at Anfield tomorrow, 3 p.m. kickoff, which is a strange one because it doesn't feel like we've played in a 3 o'clock kickoff for a real long time. But Kev, how are you? How are you this evening? How's your weekend getting off to?
Oh, it's good. I sat down and watched the Ireland's under-20s in rugby against Italy, and they scraped through by a point. But it was a cracking game to watch, so that passed a few hours. But other than that, no, I'm all good. All good. No dramas, no crisis. Looking forward to tomorrow's 3 o'clock kickoff. So, yeah, it is weird, isn't it? That we don't have the lunchtime kickoff, and we're not sandwiched in on the Sunday at 2 o'clock. So, all good. 3 o'clock kickoff tomorrow, Burnley. Need to get back on the horse.
Yes.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into the match, we're just going to have a little bit of a discussion around some of the rule issues that have been coming up in the last couple of days. But before we get there, just let everybody know right off the start, thank you all for joining us. See a lot of the familiar names in here. Rod, Dan Austin, Scouser Pete, Joe Delaney, Tom Boland, Ashley L, all in here. Hit the like button. You guys all know the rules. But if you're catching up later on YouTube or you're on a podcast download afterwards, hit the thumbs up button. Give us a 5-star rating if you think it's worth the 5 stars. Helps us know that we're having an impact with our audience, and that's important. And then you can go along and help us out. Our 2 charity partners for our 2024 fundraiser are the Lighthouse Cafe in Dublin and Fan Supporting Food Banks in Liverpool. 2 charities that are helping out people that are down on their luck and just need to put some food in their belly, put food on the table for their families. So hot meals at the Lighthouse in Dublin, and then Fan Supporting Food Bank, a food bank obviously in Liverpool. Trying to raise 10,000 euros for these 2 great organizations, split that right down the middle for them, and then we can move on to our next fundraiser. So Kev, you were just briefing me before we came on about some of the let's say less sensational rule changes that were happening. But I noticed in light of Gav and Dave Downey on last night's podcast talking about the blue card situation that there's been a pretty significant walk back, it seems like, from IFAB and the governing bodies, that the story seems like it got a little taken out of hand.
Yeah, a bit premature, I think. Wouldn't be the first time that FIFA, UEFA, IFAB leak something to a nice little friendly journalist, knowing that he's going to make a pig's ear of it, put it out there, see what the reaction is be, and then 24 hours later, we weren't really thinking about doing that. The truth is, they've done this already. They trialed this in 2019-20 in the lower leagues in England. I think it was one of the district leagues. And the reason they brought it in is basically because referees were getting beaten up. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't keep referees in the game, and they needed something to bring in to try to control players and to just cool heads. And I didn't realize this, but it was brought in originally rugby league in Australia back in 1981, the first sin bins. And it's pretty common across a lot of sports now. Rugby predominantly. Hockey has the penalty box for what seems like forever and a day. I think eventually football will bring it in, but I think the way they're going to do it, a lot of people are trying to overcomplicate this. It's not complicated. It's really simple. I think the way they're going to do it is right now, if you get a yellow card for dissent, that's the end of it. If you get a yellow card for a cynical foul, that's the end of it. All that will happen is you'll get a yellow card and you'll go to the bin for 10 minutes. That's it. No, yellow card, carry on. Oh, no, it's a blue card, carry on. No, they're already calling the fouls and giving bookings for this stuff already. It's going to be an added layer. It's like you'll get a yellow card for dissent and you'll go to the bin. Whether it happens down the line, I think it probably will, but I think it's going to be years down the line. I think you're talking maybe 5 years, 10 years even, by the time it eventually comes out. But unless players, the amount of games I've watched, and you take the yellow card for the team.
Yeah.
Those kind of bookings.
Yeah. That good foul on the halfway line.
Yeah. The thing is, they mucked about with this a while back, didn't they? And it was mainly around the last man, when they brought in the stuff around the last man, and it was like, if you were even close to being the last man and you put in a tackle, you're off. That's it. No messing. Then, it was happening too often. So too many games were being ruined by it. So they messed about with it. And we end up with this nonsense that we have now, where players are willing to take bookings, knowing that, with the amount of rotation squads have, it'll just get totted up down the line. You don't have to pay for it on the day. There's no real penalty for it. There's no real punishment for it. It's just one of them things. But I don't, like I say, I think they threw it out there to see what the reaction would be. But all in all, I think once you get to that point where IFAB are actively discussing doing trials, then eventually they're going to bring it in somewhere. And the way they were talking about it, the trials they were on about doing, the FA want to trial it, and they want to trial it with the Women's FA Cup and the Men's FA Cup.
Interesting.
And then even Klopp come out in his press conference and say, yeah, trial it, see how it works, see if it works. If it doesn't work, you abandon it. There's no point in being the guy that says, yeah, no, it's change. I don't like change. We don't do change. Change is for pussies. And we'll just move on and carry on as we've always done, because this is how we've always done it. Nah, they'll trial it. If it works, fine. If it doesn't work, they'll bin it. But the reason they'll bin it is because there's no money involved in this.
Yeah.
Whereas with VAR and VR technology, there's a big investment to be made in it. This is a different kettle of fish.
The guy that owns the blue card factory is at home just screaming at you, disagreeing.
Yeah, where you're, the guy who makes blue dye for denim is like, yeah, denim fashion is really falling off at the minute. The double denim look is gone. I need this blue card dye to work, man. This has got to do it. But no, I want to see the trial. I hate it when people turn around and bin stuff off within 5 minutes of it being announced without anything actually being announced. Nothing was announced.
No evidence.
No whatsoever. Idea how it's going to work. See what the plan is. See what the trials are like, and then make a decision. Otherwise, what's the bloody point?
Yeah. It's Emmett Kavanaugh says it needs to come in at a grassroots level so the players' behavior is learned. You aren't changing senior players' behaviors overnight. No. And you're not.
That's where they trialed it. That's where they did trial it in 1920, and I looked it up. When they trialed it, you have things that are measurable when they do these trials. And the measurable thing was the referees' reports log behavior over the course of a season across. So you have a league with 10 teams, you have over 100 games, and they log behavior from the start to the finish. And there was a measurable improvement in players' conduct with each other, players' conduct with officials, and a reduction in the amount of cards that were issued through the season. It was a gradual reduction. But Emmett is right. You're not going to change player behavior overnight. And the idea that, the other idea they came out with was like the captain is the only person to be allowed to talk to the referee. Fair enough. Yeah. At the end of the day, you're a grown ass adult. If you can't control your emotions, what's the point of you?
Yeah. I mean, that's, you mentioned rugby league there with the sin bin and the whole only the captain speaks to the referee. That's something because I went through a phase where I watched a lot of the NRL, the Aussie Rugby League. And it's such a great sport, but they are so strict about that. And the players are so good with that whenever there's an issue and they need to talk to the referees, it's the two captains only. And if the referee needs to talk to another party, they call that other player in or those other two players in. They explain to them with their captains there. Here's the situation. That's what's going on. Now you guys get out of here. I'm talking to the captains, get your team in line, no more of these bad tackles or anything like that. And you carry on playing. It's not an impossible thing to do. And that's why I had at the start of the season when the PGMOL put out their directive for the year that they were cutting down on dissent. They were cutting down on, Jason Tyndall putting a sun chair out in the technical area and players crowding the referee or players running at the referee from a long distance. I was very happy to hear those changes coming. I mean, the technical area one couldn't really care less about, but the one about players surrounding the referee and stuff like that, because that's a behavior that should be tried to be rooted out of the game because it's ridiculous. It looks childish.
Did you see the comment today, mate? It was a snippet from an article. I can't remember where it was, but it was Mark Tattenberg talked about Roy Keane shouting at him in a game. It was very early in the Premier League. It was the first time he'd ever refereed Roy Keane. And Keane absolutely bellowed at the top of his voice at Clattenburg that the ball was going out for a corner. So, and Clattenburg was convinced that it wasn't. But the way Keane shouted at him, he gave the corner anyway. And I'm like, mate, you've actually said that out loud to a reporter for an interview. Whatever shred of credibility you think you might have had, you've got absolutely none now that you can be got at by a guy shouting at you. How pathetic is that? How pathetic an individual is that referee to be able to be that much of a flip-flopper that he just, he shouts at me, Roy Keane, he's shouting at me. And you know what I mean? It's nonsense. But there was a spate of that through the early days of the Premier League. Manchester United were legendary for it, surrounding referees and bullying the living daylights out of them. And the thing is, Emmett was right bang on what he said. In rugby, it's ingrained in kids from the very first day they turn up at training as an 8-year-old playing tag rugby, right the way through the age groups, right the way through whether it's clubs, schools. If you're good enough, you go on and play for a proper club like Munster or Leinster or whatever, and so on and so on. But it's ingrained. That standard is ingrained all the way through. And at the top elite level, they still chance their arm, but they're very quick when they're snapped back into line by a strong referee. But there's another article that's out there that Nigel Owens put out, because this is muted back in November. This first came out in an article, and Nigel Owens was asking about it. Nigel Owens, best referee I've seen ever across any sport. And he said, yeah, it would be a good idea, but you have to do it from schoolboy age up so that the learned behavior is just ingrained and it's common sense. You can't just turn around at the start of next season and say, okay, this is the standard we're going forward from now on. That ship has sailed. You know, like you said at the start of the season, we're going to do this, this, and this. And 3 weeks in, we're giving out too many yellow cards. We're giving away too many silly free kicks. Yeah, we can't be doing that for the rest of the season. That's nonsense. The game is, but I'll be interested to see how the trials go and what happens with it. We will see trials. Yeah, whether it's in the Premier League, in the FA Cup, or in a domestic league in Europe.
That was the thing about it when I first saw that story kind of break. I'm at work and you start seeing that influx of messages of people reacting to this. And it's like I've not even heard about them using this. Like before VAR came out, you heard about them using it in the Dutch league and in the German league and stuff like that. And the automatic, the semi-automatic VAR. That it's being trialed in other leagues or lower divisions at this time to see how it works. I hadn't heard anything about this, and it's like this isn't going to come to fruition. But it gave a brilliant bit of podcasting last night where Dave Downey and Gav went through yellow, yellow, blue, yellow, yellow, red, yellow, yellow, blue, red, yellow. It was fantastic. So I'm combining that together with you and Gav doing elementary math there a couple of weeks ago, and it's halfway to a kindergarten channel.
That worked out well, didn't it?
But the other rule changes, Kev, are much less inflammatory and surround profit and sustainability and FFP and stuff like that. And these I had not heard too much about. So give me a rundown on the vote that they had today over the FFP limits.
Well, this vote they had today was basically, it was twofold. There was a motion to introduce the UEFA style PSR, which would mean that clubs would be allowed to spend up to 70% of their total generated income on players, playing staff, coaches, coaching staff throughout the club, and transfer fees and wages. And the other option was to stick with the £105 over 3 years worth of losses. And that's the way they decided to go. And that's fine. I personally was glad of that because I don't like the idea of a Liverpool, a Manchester United, a Manchester City, a Chelsea, Arsenal being able to spend that much more on their transfer budget than a Fulham, a Crystal Palace, or a club who just gets promoted. I don't like that idea. It doesn't sit well with me because it means like the gap between the haves and have-nots becomes unsustainably wider within a really short space of time. Can you imagine a club like Manchester United with an annual turnover of, say, for argument's sake, £700 million a year, and they're allowed to spend 70% of that every year on their playing staff?
490 million a year.
Yeah. And then you got the likes of a Fulham with an annual turnover of a fifth of that. And then they have to run their entire playing staff and coaching staff on a budget of 70% of that, of their spend. The gap would be enormous. It's sickening to me as it is. The clubs are allowed to lose £105 million over a 3-year period. And that is deemed to be somehow okay. Yeah. That a business is allowed to run in a way that is allowed to lose over £35 million every year, and it's okay. That's just weird. But that's the model they're going to stick with. So, okay, that's the one that they decided to stick with. The other vote was on multi-club ownership. And the multi-club ownership bit is interesting because you have a situation at the minute with Manchester City where they're trying to sign a player, Savio, from Girona. And the fee I've seen banded about was €30 million. And this kid is being and Girona are part of the Manchester City group, but his parent club originally is Troyes. He's never played for Troyes. They're in the second division, bottom of the second division in France. He's never played for them. But they somehow managed to sign this kid for £6.5 million at the time, loaned him to PSV Eindhoven, then loaned him to Girona. And now suddenly Manchester City are coming calling when he qualifies as a European player. Or he's qualified by the amount of time he's played in Europe to be able to go to Manchester City. And the thing is, it brings in, they've introduced a rule basically that clubs are going to have to pay a fair market value for these players. So if you're looking at this kid and you're saying, okay, €30 million for a 19-year-old left winger from Brazil who's being compared to Vinicius Jr., when Real Madrid spent £45 million on him in 2018, Man City are getting him for £30 million in 2024. A fidget spinner was signed for Manchester United at £75 million, and Anthony Gordon went to Newcastle from a relegation battling Everton for £45 million. It doesn't add up, does it? So they want to tighten up the rules around clubs who are part of groups, and they're like Watford did it with, I think, Udinese for years, where they would loan each other players, swap each other players. But when they went to sell a player to each other, it was the sales were at the right price. And it's not so much even the sales part of it, it's the buying. Can you imagine a situation where, and I'll just pick out, for example, Brighton. Brighton, our owner, Tony Bloom, owns a share of Union Saint-Gilloise. But say, for argument's sake, Brighton are touching FFP and they need to offload a player and sell a player for a certain amount. Oh, I know. Our mates in Belgium will buy this guy for an overinflated price that gets us out of FFP problems. And it's basically manipulating the market in a way that it was designed not to be manipulated. So they've introduced rules to ban that practice.
Do you think this is coming off the back of stuff that happened in the summer? Like, you gave that hypothetical situation with Brighton and Union Saint-Gilloise, but how about Kalidou Koulibaly? Going from Chelsea to Saudi Arabia, where there is a connection between the Clear Lake Group, the Saudi PIF, Todd Boehly, Chelsea, they all seem to be kind of interconnected, and an aged Koulibaly coming off of quite a poor year for Chelsea goes for a pretty hefty sum. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't a pittance. And if you think about the state that Chelsea's in with their finances,
Alan Saint-Maximin was another one.
Yeah.
The guy was walking around with bandages up around his knees. He looked like the Michelin man when he was running, and they managed to get nearly 30 million for him, so, and there was another one, the Chelsea kit sponsorship deal was for 1 year at an overinflated price based on where Chelsea were for this season. They're out of Europe. They were in a massive rebuild phase. They hadn't been performing well for the last few years. And suddenly they can command a shirt sponsorship deal along the same lines as what a Manchester City or Liverpool, Manchester United can command. That's just a nonsense. So they've tightened all these rules up, but the vote went through 12-6 with 2 abstentions. So it was passed through, but only just. And on the offshoot of that, it's been reported that a certain Premier League club is looking to sue the Premier League through arbitration, saying that this is against competition laws in the UK. Now, I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure that the Premier League would have all their ducks in a row before changing or bringing forward these rules. But, shots have been fired now. We'll see where it goes. But they have to close these loopholes down, because the rules originally were written on the premise that clubs have an integrity, club owners have an integrity about them, that they'll play the game fair. And back in the day, they did. They were buying players, selling players, sponsorship deals, whatever. There was integrity there to a point. But once you lose that, and it's me, myself, and I, and the rest of you be damned, and you've got so many clubs now with skin in this game, with multi-club ownership deals. Arsenal have the Colorado Rapids, Brentford and Midtjylland, Brighton and Saint-Joe. Like I said, Palace owner owns Botafogo. He's got a bit in Lyon, Real Salt Lake, Augsburg, Den Haag in Holland, Man City. We know the Man City group. West Ham's owner owns a good chunk of Sparta Prague. It's a real problem in the making.
I think Souček and Soufal both came from there, didn't they?
They came from Sparta Prague, but it was before the ownership change.
Ah, okay. See, that's all.
The ownership,
that's all about
the guy came in. What's his name? Daniel Kaczynski came in 2021. Those sales happened before that, but I think the introductions that were made during those transfers probably helped for him to get in the door.
Yeah, that's helpful. I mean, Paul Giovanni here saying that Chelsea and Abramovich started it all off. For the entirety, it seems like, of Abramovich's reign at Chelsea, there was constantly the Chelsea youth players heading out to, where was it, Toulouse?
See, I haven't really got a problem with that, because I think it's a good thing in a way that you can send. Manchester United did it as well. They sent loan players out to, I think, the Belgian league. It was Royal Antwerp, I think. But it was literally all of the players went to a club. You knew where they were going. You knew how they were going to be coached. You knew what type of football they were playing, and they were coming back to you. It wasn't like you were using them to sell them players and they then buying them back at an overinflated price or an underinflated price, depending on which way you needed your books to go that year. I think this is literally trying to get in front of the potential problems they see coming down the line with multi-ownership. And the problems are huge that could come down the line, They really, really are.
Yeah, McGlinchey there had a comment.
Vitas Arnhem was at Chelsea.
Oh, right. His comment saying that, it feels like a lot of this is because of the independent regulator that's coming in.
That's it. That's another one. That's another one that's been kicked down the road. They were expecting a white paper to come on and legislation to come on that in this parliament, in the first 3 months of this parliament. And it looks like the Tories have kicked that can down the road now, and they're basically going to pawn it off till after the next election. It probably is part to do with that. But that's not to say that's a bad thing either, because it's about time that the Premier League started to look at its rule book and started enforcing the rules that they have, as well as future-proofing the stability of the league going forward. Because if you get into a situation where clubs can spend what they want willy-nilly, they can siphon money in and out of each other's parent feeder clubs, left, right, and centre, to manipulate their accounts, then you will see the Premier League become just an also-ran league. It'll be worse than what you think. It's bad now with Man City going for 4 in a row, and nobody seemingly able to touch them. That gap will just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it'll just become a nonsense to watch, to be honest.
Yeah. Mitch_LFC, one of our members here, says, as an Aussie, I've seen firsthand the pure corruption that's flooded through Melbourne City FC, part of the City Group. And he says people won't complain because they put money into the cities. And Red Steve saying the world of football has moved on so much since these rules were first written. It's like expecting the Constitution to be relevant to today's America. And then 3 popcorn emojis. So we'll just go ahead and leave that one there. Avo the third is always looking for a loophole as well. He says City will sign Mbappe and then tell him to change his name from Killian to Fair, and then they'll tell the FA that they're playing fair, which is that's pretty standard Avo jokes there. I don't know, Kev, like just hearing you kind of explain these changes that were made with the possible penalties hanging over Nottingham Forest and Everton, the already levied penalty on Everton. It feels like a bit of a noose maybe being formed by the Premier League around some of these clubs that have been pretty obviously and blatantly breaking the rules. And then you get that divide between clubs like Forest and Everton that are holding their hands up and going, yeah, we're not exactly following the rules here. We think we're in some trouble, to a club like Chelsea, who seem to be looking for every single loophole in the entire world. And then in the extreme case of Manchester City, of just absolute blocking and obstructing at every single point, being held accountable whatsoever. So I take some credence from that. Like,
yeah, I've got no sympathy for Everton or Nottingham Forest. It's black and white what your accounts, what you're allowed to spend. Every club hires proper accountants. They're meticulous. They know going into every transfer window what they have to get out and what they have to get back in. They know exactly where they stand financially, what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And they went and did it anyway. And they gambled on the fact that they thought the Premier League weren't watching. And the beauty of this rolling 3-year period is that on year one, if you get, they gave Everton a heads up 2 months before it was coming down the line that they had to sort something out, and then they went out and started buying players in anyway. So that's by the by. Forest are in a different boat, because when they came up from the Championship, their financial spending power was judged. I think 1 of the years or 2 of the years were based on Championship earnings, not Premier League earnings. And they had to replace virtually a whole squad.
Okay, about that, Kev, because I've heard that argument made to kind of not...
It's not a mitigation. That's going to be their defense, but it will fail.
But to me, I see that as Forest gambled on bringing in all these players on loan to get out of the Championship. They got out of the Championship, and then they just doubled down again with signing more and more and more and more players. And it wasn't like they were signing total no marks. Like, Forest spent some money. They kind of threw their new Premier League money around a little bit. But how fair is that for them to say, we're going to push this to the absolute limit of, financial fair play, just to use that as the terminology for the metaphor? How is that fair on the teams that they pipped to those promotion spots in the Championship? So, like, I don't have any sympathy for Nottingham Forest.
What they did to get out of the Championship was perfectly fine. It was perfectly legal. There was nothing wrong with that.
Except it set them up to require a massive amount of expenditure to cover for all of those players. So it's robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, Forest's biggest problem was the Premier League said, we need to look at your accounts from this date onwards, or from this date backwards. They changed the goalposts. Basically, they normally they were supposed to, at the end of the summer transfer window, retrospectively look back on the previous 12 months, but they didn't. They moved it from the end of the transfer window to July. And Forest must have already known that the Brendan Johnson sale was happening, but it wouldn't happen until the end of the window because of where Spurs were. They were waiting on Spurs to get the Harry Kane deal done. So Forest were pretty certain that their income was going to be okay. And if they had got the Brendan Johnson money in within the time that the FA, the Premier League were looking at, they'd have been absolutely fine. Their books were okay. They'd have been covered. So the Premier League's shifting the goalposts halfway through an accounting period screwed Forest. It's just unfortunate, but it's caught them in a web, and that's where their defense. That's what their defense is going to be. Whether it works or not, who knows? But at the end of the day, Forest going forward have that Brennan Johnson money now, and that's really good profit off their top line for them. So they'll be okay going into year 2 and 3.
I mean, you're
But
presuming that they're
they
not going to
still-
go out and spend another.
I know they still could get
120
relegated. They
Yeah.
still could get relegated and be lumbered with a load of players. You'd hope they were smart enough to put relegation clauses in their contracts that they don't end up with a noose around their neck, that they're tied to a load of Premier League wages when they're in the Championship. So I think Forest will probably get a points deduction. I don't think it'll be as severe as Everton's, but I think it will be enough to bring them right down into trouble. They could be right in trouble.
Yeah. Well, best of luck to them. I mean, it is kind of nice being a Liverpool fan where you can just sit back and watch all of these accusations of financial mismanagement and impropriety being flung about at all these other teams in the league, knowing that none of that shit's getting flung at in our direction whatsoever. So let's put that in the rear view mirror and start looking forward to tomorrow, Kev. I mean, we're coming up on
football.
Yeah,
football.
we're 21 and a half hours until kickoff, more or less here. Jurgen Klopp had his press conference today. He ran through some of the injury updates. I saved this comment from Madge Apple. She said, Klopp's sarcasm and cynicism today was perfect. Hope this is only the beginning. I did sit down and watch the press conference knowing that I was doing this show tonight. I normally don't watch a lot of Klopp's press conferences. And yeah, you could really tell that he's like, I don't have to hide how much I fucking hate doing this now. And I thought the one comment that he made when he was asked about Connor Bradley, where he effectively says, I think a player's mental health isn't something that should be discussed in public if you have any amount of empathy, was just like, poof. He may as well have just said shame on you to whoever asked him that question.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it.
To be fair, I think the journalist had to ask. But at the same time, Klopp answered it perfectly. Connor will be ready when he's ready, when he feels like he's ready. He's at home with his family at the minute. His father's only been in the ground a week, so less than a week. By the time he gets himself back to Liverpool, gets his head right, you might not see him for a few weeks, and that's not a bad thing. Yeah. At the end of the day, he's 20 years of age. He wouldn't have been expecting this to have to deal with this. It's hard enough as a grown adult to deal with losing a parent. Never mind, someone who's literally a few months out from being a teenager. Yeah. It's a nightmare for him. So look, Klopp answered it perfectly. He shut the question down and he answered it in the right way, with the right tone. And I don't think he was having a pop at the journalist per se, but he was like, yeah, look, you can ask this once, don't ask it again.
Yeah. And like Ashley L says here, and I had the exact same thought, Ashley, night and day comparison to Eric Ten Hag. Just the levels between these two men when it comes to actually not just managing their players, but just being an empathetic human being towards somebody else that's going through some problems, whether it's Jadon Sancho or Connor Bradley. So the big takeaways from the press conference, Kev, somehow out of the blue, we've managed to tot up a pretty hefty little injured list.
Yeah, it didn't take much to that.
No, it felt like we were getting pretty much everybody back. So, I mean, obviously, Matip, Bajcetic, and Doak out for the foreseeable future, presumably the entire season. News on Szoboszlai is obviously non-committal. You're never going to get, Jurgen Klopp is never going to stand up there with the X-rays and the MRI scans.
Worried me when he said tendon. He said muscle and then he said tendon. That worries me because that's time, and that's nothing but time. If you're not going to operate, then if it's a problem with an inflamed tendon, then that's literally just, we'll have to see how he trains, assess it the next day, see how he trains again with a bit of a heavier load, assess it again. I think you could be looking at a couple of weeks minimum.
Yeah. So that's obviously not great. Mo Salah still out. When asked about whether he would be fit for next weekend, Klopp kind of said, well, either next weekend against Brentford or the following weekend. But if you ask Mo, he would say next weekend. So that is good because I got a wild card burning a hole in my pocket in the FPL, and I've been waiting to use it to bring Mo back into my team. Obviously, Connor Bradley still out. And then we come on to the absolute 2024 reincarnation of Arthur Melo that is Thiago. Uh,
Yeah.
I am furious about this, Kev. Not about him getting injured again. That's to be expected. What I'm furious about is that he made a 5+ minute appearance against Arsenal, ruining my prediction that he would never play for Liverpool ever again. So he comes back, he plays an Arthur Mello's amount of minutes, and then will possibly not be seen again. Though that the rumors yesterday that he might be out for the rest of the season. Today, Klopp also kind of backtracked on those a little bit and left the door open that we might just see him one more time.
Yeah, I look at the Thiago stuff, and if his name was Naby Keita, he'd be getting pelters left, right, and centre. It's unfortunate, but it's to be expected. If a guy misses 9-10 months, the first time he comes back, and it's usually like an adrenaline rush, that he does something, and it's usually something completely unrelated to the original injury. And I'm like, you're a week after the game was Sunday, and you're still not saying what the injury is or how severe it is. That to me says like it could be something or nothing. It could be just a slight grade, it's a high grade hamstring tear. That give it a month and he'll be fine. Or it could be something that's really severe. We don't know. He's still been guarded about and he always is when it comes to player injuries. He's very rarely gives specifics about what a player injury is. So nobody's going to be more frustrated than the player. You get back on the pitch after 10 months and it's in a losing cause, and you come on, you give the ball away as the first thing that you do. And you play a couple of passes, and the next thing we know, he's done something. It's horrible for him. Absolutely horrible. But I was chatting to Chris in the week, and he said to me, it's a shame, but would you I'll ask the question to you. Was Thiago's signing originally, was it worth the gamble?
No. I said this last season that I think that the signing of Thiago was a mistake, and it changed the function of our midfield of trying to move away from that Workman, Henderson, Wijnaldum, Fabinho style midfield to something with a little bit more flair into it. I felt last season, and I mean this season doesn't really change yet because we haven't seen Thiago in that team at all, that it changed the function of that midfield too much. And I mean, this is probably colored by the fact that last season we were fucking dreadful and being absolutely overrun, in our midfield game after game after game. And we really missed that drive. But it turns out what it was we just needed legs. You can still have players that can play silky with the ball. McAllister has the ability to do that some of the time, not to a Thiago level. Szoboszlai obviously has some of those same skills. But those guys can run, and they can run fast, and they can run for days. And that's what we were missing. So, yeah, I mean, we'll always have that, 3 or 4 game run there where we played United and City, and he was spectacular. Just spectacular in that little spring period that he had there 2 seasons ago. But no, I don't think it was a good signing.
I know. I agree with you, but I still think it was worth the gamble because he's that good. If it worked, you're signing a £20 million player that is just technically one of the most gifted players of his generation. Granted, he's on 200 grand a week. He's not on chump change.
No.
But at the same time, I think it was worth the punt, but it just hasn't worked. And the thing is, the oddity is, this season, the midfield has evolved to where we've now got more players along the lines of what Thiago offers you. That passing, the vision, the ingenuity, the guile, but they have the youth and athleticism about them as well. So I think we evolved the midfield and the type of players that we had under Klopp, 4 or 5 years ago. But it's just a shame that it just didn't work out for him. I would have loved nothing more than to see a 32, 33 game season with Thiago in the middle of the park dictating play.
Yeah.
I'd love nothing more than to see that. And for that alone, I think it was worth it. He's one of the very few truly world-class players that Liverpool have ever signed. You know,
that's inarguable. I mean, that's completely. I mean, at least in the Premier League sort of era.
I full stop. Genuinely, full stop. We normally get players who are on that B+ rating and they kick on while they're at the club. Even back in the day, signing Kenny Dalglish from Celtic, yeah, he was a big deal in Scotland, but you're coming down to playing in the first division in England. It's a different game. And he improved massively while he was at the club. Graham Souness, another one who kicked on when he was at the club. Alan Hansen kicked on when he was at the club. It was Thiago come in with the reputation as a world-class player. Virgil van Dijk from Southampton kicked on and became the player that he is at Liverpool.
Yeah, even Alisson.
It's very rare that Liverpool sign that guy.
Yeah.
Very rare.
Yeah, I mean, for no other reason, but like, I mean, the outlay on him wasn't massive. There were times when we really could have used Thiago in the midfield and he just wasn't available for us. But I saw somebody posting the stats of his average number of games per season for Liverpool, for Barcelona, and for Bayern Munich. And it feels like this is something the club would have been able to see coming, that he plays about 25 games a season every season. And that's about it. Like, he's just not a 30, 35 game, let alone you get up to somebody like Gini Wijnaldum that played like 42 games every single season for Liverpool, like 5 years in a row sort of thing.
Yeah. But the flip side is you look at Gini now. Look at Gini when he left. We rinsed the absolute last drop of life's blood out of that guy.
Sure.
And he will never be the same. He will never be the same. The amount of players and it's probably one of the things that Klopp he should get more stick for it, but he'll never get it from us because he's getting the last dredges out of players for us. But when they go, they very rarely, if ever, kick on to be as good as they were. Very rare.
Yeah.
Even you look at like Sadio. Sadio, when he went to, but I wish Jurgen Klopp had a chance to work with Suarez.
Ugh.
You know what I mean? But the Sadio Mane to Bayern Munich should have worked. It really should. But it just goes to show how much we'd taken out of him in his time at the club. Jordan Henderson, apparently the Ajax fans absolutely love him. Oh. He's had a really good start with Ajax, but we'll see what he's like in a couple of months' time. But in general, as a rule, when players go, they generally don't improve.
Yeah.
They put that much into playing for Liverpool that it usually finishes them off, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, one thing's for sure is that it was money well spent just simply for the amount of times where he took the ball down in the least exciting area of the pitch, 30, 35 yards from your own goal and does something that just makes you go, oh. And I mean, that's what I'll remember.
One of the best goals I've ever seen.
Oh, that goal against Porto that'll be on highlight reels for Liverpool fans for the end of time, and let the debate continue of whether or not it touched the ground. It might just be Schrodinger's goal. It did both touch the ground and not touch the ground at the same time. But we can say for a fact that Thiago is in fact out for tomorrow. Another person we can make a pretty definite statement on is that Endo will be back in the squad. Now, whether or not we think he'll start, we'll come around to. And then we got a couple of question marks. Kostas Tsimikas back in training this week. Do you see him popping up on the bench for us?
I think that Ashley makes a really good point. Who will be on the flu bingo card tomorrow?
I was going to get there because the next question was about Joe Gomez. Because
I genuinely have no idea how this is going to play out because I have no idea who's available.
Yeah.
When you hear at the end of a press conference, by the way, we have a bit of a flu bug running through our squad, anything could happen tomorrow. Any kind of a lineup could come out tomorrow and there will be some big surprises in there. And tomorrow's game could become a lot more difficult than it needs to be because who potentially could be missing. It's impossible to know. Impossible to know. We can go by the training photos that we've seen. But, it's got to be mental when 2 o'clock comes around tomorrow and we see the lineup and we're saying, okay, how is this going to play? Who's going to play where? And then we'll be on eggshells until 5:05, and genuinely no idea how O'Shea's making the point. James McConnell could end up starting if it's rampant in the squad. It absolutely could. We don't know how this is going to go. Don't think Joe Gomez has been seen too much this week in the training videos. So,
No.
Do you want to go through the potential 11?
Yeah, I mean, it's so strange to have to put a little asterisk caveat on every one of these to say unless they have the flu and are
unless they have the flu.
Yeah, just absolutely expelling fluids out of all of their orifices simultaneously. Obviously, Allison's going to start in goal, and I think we get both of our fullbacks back in and starting again. So Trenton Robertson, and obviously Kanate is suspended. Joe Gomez seems to be on the dodgy lasagna, so it seems pretty certain that you're going to go with Kwanzaa and Van Dijk in the center halves, right? Cool.
Yeah.
So the midfield, I think Jones plays.
Yeah.
I think McAllister plays.
Yeah. But
I'm not entirely sure if we're going to agree on where McAllister plays, because I think McAllister plays right 8 and Endo plays in the 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I had exactly the same. Yeah, no, I had exactly the same. McAllister offers you a level of control in the middle of the park that you can go one of two ways. You can play a double 6 with McAllister and Endo, where Endo will be your sitter and he'll sense danger and block it all off, prevent the counter-attacks from ever evolving, and McAllister will just be that person who's closest to the front three, leading the press, triggering the press like Lallana used to do when he was in that position, and hunt them in packs from inside their half. But that's how I would line it up 100%.
Bob Paddock here has the alternative, which is McAllister in the 6, Jones left, and Harvey Elliott on the right. And Harvey Elliott probably would feel justified in thinking that he's due a start in this game.
Yeah. Wouldn't be against it, but I think I'll be honest. I was thinking about this earlier on, that if he decides to play a double 6, then, we've tinkered with it in games quite a bit where we've played 4-2-3-1. And we might have started the game in a 4-3-3, but within 5-10 minutes, you're playing a double 6 and your front four are interchanging with each other, looking to form some kind of attack. But you could end up playing a 4-2-3-1 tomorrow, and then you could end up seeing a Harvey Elliott playing out on the right, coming in onto his left foot. You could
double
see
up Jota and Darwin through the middle as kind of a
Jota, maybe Jota in the 10, Darwin in the 9, and you could put Cody Gakpo or Luis Diaz out on the left, either or, keeping one of them in reserve to come off the bench and influence the game that way. You always got to have to look at the way Klopp has lined up sides this season. He likes to keep one or two in his back pocket as an insurance policy to influence the game, either on the hour or with 20 minutes to go. He can make a change, and that changes the way we play. So if one of the front three that we expect to start doesn't, that could be the reason why. Plus the fact you're at home against Burnley. If you want to try and experiment with something mid-season that you think you might need for the second half of the season, it's as good a game as any to try something.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're trying something out of the ordinary. Be one sec.
No, it's the only reason that I was really interested in the idea of McAllister playing. I mean, I didn't even think about it as a double pivot, but that's probably what it would end up being. But I would just like to see McAllister play on that right-hand side of the midfield, because Trent's coming back in after, 3-4 weeks out through injury, and he was part of that right-hand side. Now, obviously, Burnley at home couldn't be a much further different beast from away to Arsenal. So these are different teams we're playing against, but that right-hand side was so poor against Arsenal last weekend that I just want to see a little bit more, because Gravenberch didn't do enough to help protect Trent in those right-hand side spaces for us. And I think if we move McAllister out there to that right-hand side, like you look at his defensive numbers that he's putting up for this season, and he's going about it quietly, but he's having a pretty damn good season for a 6 that's not actually a 6. So I would like to see him out there because we know he has the ability to play those line splitting passes as well. But I just think he's got his head screwed on enough defensively that it can allow Trent to, whether he wants to drift inside and get back to that inverting role, which I would presume we're going to see with Robertson back in the team, or play both of the fullbacks a lot more orthodox and have them pinned to the sidelines and just bombing up and down the whole time. I like that idea, having him there. What about your front three? Because I have Jota on the right, Darwin through the middle, and Diaz on the left.
Yeah, I think as long as they're all fit and healthy, then yeah. I mean, that's the way you go with it. And the thing is, we only played them on Boxing Day. And you go back to that game, we won it 2-0, and it was a late goal from Jota in the end. But we had 2 goals disallowed as well, you know, so, and we pretty much dominated them at their place. Yeah, they had a couple of attacks, but they didn't really lay a glove on us, and we should have won by a lot more. And that 2-0 scoreline should have been a lot wider. Yeah, I think that's the lineup he'll probably go with. McAllister in the right 8, Endo in the 6, Jones in the left 8, front 3 would Diaz, Darwin, and Jota, and get the game won and then make changes. The fact that we've had a week's break is a bonus. You know, I think the players probably needed it after that Arsenal game and the games they had in that couple of weeks beforehand. But no, Madge makes a point there, going back up a bit. Why would pro athletes automatically not get the flu vaccine? I'm pretty certain they have, but there is no known cure for man flu. And as someone who has suffered man flu in recent weeks, my thoughts and prayers are with the entire Liverpool first team squad for all of the pain and suffering that they are going through at this traumatic time. And I can only imagine the heartache that they're going through it tomorrow. It's going to be so tough to get through this one. They deserve all of our love and support through this horrendous, bad injury plight the squad is going through. Mad shame on you for saying
we can only hope that the wives and girlfriends and families of these man flu afflicted players are doing their proper duty and caring for them hand and foot, allowing them to sit on the couch and play FIFA and drink ginger ale and eat saltines.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I will say though, it's probably pretty tough to play elite level sport though when you're worried about having to shit your pants. So they might get a bit of a pass on that, but it really does.
Scarra Lineker, he knows.
It really makes waiting for the lineups tomorrow very interesting, because it could be like a lot of kids.
Yeah, I'm looking at it the other side as well. Look, Burnley play the way that they played. They try to attack and they try to play proper football. They play out from the back. They'll try to break through our press and get on the counter. That guy they got on loan from Chelsea, Fofana, has made 2 appearances off the bench. He scored 3 goals. I think he's their top scorer. But he knows where the back of the net is, and he's rapid. I think in James Trafford they've got a very, very good keeper.
He was good when we played him.
Yeah, he was very good. Made some really good saves. They have some good young talented players, but they play in such a way that they will give us chances.
Yeah,
you know, and just get the game won. You know, 3 points tomorrow is huge. Daz TV was in the chat earlier on, said 3 points is massive. It is. City can go top if they win their game tomorrow before us. So look, you're at this point in the season now where every single game there's something on it. I was hoping that we would come away from Arsenal with a point. As it stands now, losing that game, our next 3 games are massive. We need to pick up 9 points from 9 in the next 3, and there's no excuses now. Tomorrow is huge. You know, you can't have a show tomorrow where we come on out and do a post match and we're talking about missed chances and missed opportunities and shoulda, woulda, coulda. You have to be coming in tomorrow with 3 points and you're bouncing into the next game. It's huge because the next fixture I think we have is it Brentford?
Brentford, yeah.
Won't be easy. And then we got Luton, which every game that Luton are involved with at the minute is a proper game. And they'll drag you down to their level and turn it into a proper game. And, we're at the stage now there's no messing about. You have to match you have to match what what Arsenal and Manchester City are doing every week. And if they slip up, you have to take advantage. They've all got tough games coming up as well.
This is the run-in now, Kev. We're 15 games left, and the run-in has now officially started because it is at that point now where you're looking who plays first on the weekend. Do they have the ability of jumping into first place? And then you got to match or better their result, whatever it is. And this is what we're here for. This is what we're here for. Buckle up. This comment from McGlinchey here was from about 2 minutes after the show started. He said, "No slip-ups tomorrow, or else full-time Reds could be a rough one." So, none of us want that. You want to do a little score prediction, Kev?
I think we win. I think it'll be 3-0, and we get a clean sheet. I think it'll be 3-0. As long as we turn up and play, we'll beat them. If they play out from the back, like I think they probably will try to, then we'll suffocate the life out of them, and you make them pay. If you're Darwin Núñez tomorrow going into this game, you have to be looking at, I'm going to knock my stats through the roof tomorrow. I'm going to make a point of getting a hat trick. I'm going to do something tomorrow to kick off the rest of the season. But I think 3-0. I don't really give a shit if it's a 1-0 scuttery win on 3 points. But ideally, you'd like the performance to go with it and just get back on the horse because, you can understand the doom and gloom after the Arsenal performance and result. But that was the first loss in a 15-game run. And the only way to do that again is to get back on another 15-game run.
Exactly. And luckily, we have 15 games remaining. So, or at least league games remaining. I'll keep that winning streak going in all the other cup competitions as well, too. So a few other predictions in here. McGlinchey says 3-0 to the Reds. Darwin double, Jota with the goals. Avo the third saying 4-0. Lee Wizkid 4-1 to us. Red Steve is on the exact same wavelength as me. 6-0 to the Reds. I like that Kev mentioned Darwin Núñez hat trick because I think that's going to happen as well, too. He's definitely due for a hat trick. Mark Simons says, if Connor doesn't play, we are in for a tough game. I got bad news for you, Mark. Connor Bradley is not going to be in the squad at all tomorrow. So here's the hoping that you're being just a little bit melodramatic with that one because it's not going to be a tough game. I mean, Kev, you're on post-match with me tomorrow, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, so then we don't want a scuttery 1-0, Kev. We just want a nice, quiet. No. No
VR drama, no referee, no contentious decisions, no stupidity. Nah, I'm quite happy to be. Do you know what? And I mean this. I want to do tomorrow's show, and I want to try and be off for 5:30 if I can, because I want to go and watch Bayern against Leverkusen at 5:30 kickoff tomorrow, and I'm really looking forward to that one. So,
all right. So
Liverpool do us a solid, we can go and watch Xabi Alonso and see how he gets on.
A 1-0 where we dominate but don't really create a lot of opportunities. Score about the 55th minute, and then nothing of note happens, and we'll get out of here. Lickety split for the show tomorrow. But yeah, I'm quite looking forward to it. Scouser Pete though is taking my level of optimism to an unheard of level by this comment of the Blue Shite are going to upset the apple cart tomorrow and get a cheeky 1-2 victory at the Empty Head. I love your positivity.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine that?
I almost can't imagine it, Kev, because it seems so unlikely that it's actually hard to imagine.
Well, did you watch the City game, the City and Brentford game?
Yeah.
Do you notice you've watched a fair few? You've watched a shed load of football this season, probably a lot more than me. But I've watched a fair few Man City games. They're having to work an awful lot harder this season than they ever have in the last probably 3 or 4 years, just to get their 3 points. Even the Brentford game last week, Brentford from set pieces caused them no end of problems, and they had enough good chances in the second half to even get a lead, but definitely to get back in the game.
Yeah.
So I think any side can get at this Man City side, but you've got to be lucky on the day and you've got to be brave. I don't think Everton will do anything tomorrow, but I think there's other sides in the league who can cause this version of Man City big problems this season. I don't think it's cut and dry for anyone.
They get scored against.
Yeah, they do concede. They haven't kept a clean sheet now in God knows how long.
Yeah, that's the difference, because if you look back at when they were at their absolute imperious best, because I don't think it's a radical thing to say that this year's iteration of City is not as good as the City that we saw 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons ago. 100-point level City. This City team literally cannot hit 100 points, but Ederson was at the top of that Golden Gloves chart every season. They were putting up 15, 16, 17, 18 clean sheets in a season sort of thing. So, wow, Scouser Petey's coming right back in. He says Dominic Calvert-Lewin is not going to just score 1 goal. He's going to score 2 goals, and Rodri's going to take a straight red card. It's been over a year since Rodri's been involved with the loss for Manchester City, so that might be the only way to go about it. Tom Boland's backing him up, though. He says Pickford has the most clean sheets in the league. So let's hope that tiny arms.
I'm just looking at that now. So give me a sec. Hang on. I'm just getting it up there at the minute. Jordan Pickford has played 23 games. He's 8 clean sheets. Alisson is second on 7. Onana has 7.
Shock.
I know. Nick Pope is on 6. David Ray is on 6. Ederson is on 6. Having played 21 games. It's, you got to look at it and say, Dyche has made Everton a tougher side to beat. He has. Their problem is they don't score. So, if they can keep Matt at one end and knowing that Man City can be got at through set pieces on the other, crazy. But can you imagine Jordan Pickford picking up the golden gloves at the end of the season?
They'd be more like golden sleeves, wouldn't they, on him? Like he'd look like the hamburger helper guy. They'd go right up to his shoulders. They'd go right up to his shoulders. But yeah. Before this descends into more silliness, I think that's about enough for us. I mentioned our charity already at the top of the show. If you can please help them out with that would be a humongous help. You'll always find the link to our charity in any of the show descriptions, whether it's on YouTube or on the podcast, pinned to the top of the Talkin Kop social media, whatever it is. But if you are roaming around in there and you're looking for a link, you might notice that there's actually a second charity link in there. Phil Casey of this parish is doing... I'm trying to understand it because it just seems like absolute madness. 4 Quest adventure races and the Wicklow 200 bike race. So I'm guessing that's a 200-mile or 200-kilometer bike race, and then 4 crazy run up and down mountain events in 2024. And not just to brag and say that he can do it and hang his medals off of his microphone when he does a show on a Monday night, but he's trying to raise 5,000 euros for the Laura Lynn House, which is a kids' hospice. I believe in Dublin, definitely in Ireland. So the link for the link for that charity is also in any of the show descriptions as well there too. So obviously we're going to try to help Phil get the word out for his fundraising. And unlike ours where we sit here and talk about football for a few hours a week, Phil's actually going out there and training to do these absolutely crazy races. But I do have a theory about this, Kev. I think he's trying to get himself nominated for greatest sports person of all time. I think Phil's trying to. Right, yeah, I think he's going to throw in with one of his cheeky wild card bids. I think he's going to put himself up for that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's one of our member shows that we do. It's Phil and Keith and Gav trying to whittle down a list, basically trying to solve the debate of who is the greatest sports person of all time. So we're two episodes into the series so far. It is absolutely fantastic. So that's one of our member shows. The first one, I believe, is out for regular podcast download to catch up on. But the shows that get put for members only, they're kept for the members for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days or so. And then they get released for everybody to download for free. So you don't need to become a member, but I would highly recommend that you do, because having missed the first episode, I was in the chat for the second episode and it was lively. It was...
it's brilliant.
Yeah.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's a debate that if you're a sports fan and you've got friends that are sports fans, you've had some form of
You've
this
had
debate.
this.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a fantastic show, and I'm really looking forward to see it come to fruition. I'm due up next on the next one to try to make my case for hockey to be considered a legitimate sport. So that should be all
That's
well
a
and good.
sport for sure.
Yes.
One thing though, before we go off what Phil is trying to achieve, he's trying to raise the 5K for the Laura Lynn House, which is Ireland's only children's hospice. It provides palliative care and support for children with life-limiting conditions and their families. It's the one service that you hope and pray that you or your family or your friends never, ever, ever need to use.
Yeah.
But if you ever do have cause to use that service, you want to know that it is funded to the best that it can be funded. It's a charity, it's not state funded. So every single penny that they get goes to a great, great cause. So if you can help, the link is on the Twitter feed, the link is in the description. If usual rules apply. If you can't donate, then obviously just click the link and share it around. You never know who's watching. God forbid anyone has had to use this service. And so check it out and see what you think. But Phil's a mad fucker anyway. So if there's something that's crazy and he can do it and raise money for kids, he's going to do it.
Yeah, it does. It does seem like something that in the end he's going to get done. So, but
100%.
yeah, the memberships, it's €4 a month. Highly suggest you join up with it. Gav is hopefully the Gav household is on the mend because they've all been. I wonder if he's got that same flu that's going around the Liverpool camp right now. You've sewered us, Gav. You've absolutely sewered us. But he's been dealing with a sick household, so we haven't been getting our regular 30 fix. But hopefully we're going to get back into the swing of that because that's always a fun little joy to wake up to in the morning for me here on this side of the water. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I think I can speak for the both of us, Kev. Feeling confident about tomorrow, right?
Yeah, 100%. The other thing as well, there's the prizes, footballprizes.com, link in the description, a Javi Alonso competition and Harvey Elliott competition.
Jersey. Yeah.
If you were watching last night, the tickets have been bought for the people who won the circle of thingy jobby that Gavin selected.
It was impressively entertaining. I just listened to it on a podcast, so I didn't even get the visual of a wheel turning, but it was like edge of my seat excitement. And when Richard,
it was literally the Price is Right meets Wheel of Fortune.
Yes,
it was Bob Barker to come out and say, "And this is your special prize."
Yeah, a brand new car.
Yeah, all the links for all the shows and stuff is in the description. If you're feeling lucky, give it a crack. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean
some of the stuff.
Oh, I mean, the Jurgen Klopp one. I didn't even get a chance. Gav shared the details of like, yeah, this is the next prize that's going out. It's this Jurgen Klopp thing of like, holy shit, they got like Jurgen Klopp to sign a jersey and it's all framed and it's nice. 2 days, tickets sold out. Just gone instantly. And I mean, that one's absolutely fantastic. But all the other instant prizes that come along with it too, like the main prize is obviously framed and it's got the lights and everything like that in it as well too. But I think for the crap, I can't remember which one it is now. 2-3 prizes ago, they had like, signed Darwin jerseys, signed Michael Owen jerseys, signed Fernando Torres jerseys that you just have an instant chance.
Yeah, there were spot prizes.
Yeah, if they're selling 300 tickets, they give a prize to ticket 100, 200, and 300. When you buy your ticket, you're randomly allocated a number, and if your number hits on the lucky number, you just win. So it's the extra jeopardy that got added in with Gav's idea, which I absolutely love. It's such a brilliant idea, and I can't wait.
One thing I was going to say, if anyone does win, if anyone does do this and win, let us know. Get us a photo and let us know, because I'd love to know. I hope to God that people do, if they are buying tickets and what have you, I hope to God that it's someone from our chat is winning. I'd love that. I would absolutely be stoked for that.
Yeah, I want to see the picture because I'm pretty sure Richard Lefebvre is a fellow Canadian. I mean, Lefebvre is a pretty Quebecois sounding name, so I'm going to guess that because I'm pretty sure he's told me he's Canadian before. I'm hoping he wins them both and he can send us a picture with the Xavi Alonso and the personalized Harvey Elliott jersey just back over his shoulder. But yes, if you're into that sort of stuff, you want some memorabilia, you know somebody in your life that might be interested in a little bit. So if somebody's partner is listening to this on the speaker in the house right now and you're not really caring any less, if you want a good Christmas gift or birthday present, get onto the footballprizes.co.uk because it's the sort of thing that most sports fans will be big fans
Ashley's
of.
making there. The prizes are totally legit. She's won a Klopp signed Anfield Road sign from them. Wow.
Deadly.
Nice.
Yeah. And I mean, now that's hot property now, given where we're at with the Jurgen Klopp magical farewell tour. So we get our fourth game of the Jurgen Klopp farewell tour tomorrow. Easy for me to say.
Yeah. Record
Kickoffs
attendance at Anfield tomorrow as well.
That's
60,700 or something. So
yeah, biggest crowd since it became all cedar, I believe, right?
Yep. I just hope
Absolutely
biggest 3 p.m. the atmosphere is there.
Yeah, so everybody watch the game legally. I know I certainly will be, so because I actually can do that. So, but yes, everybody enjoy the match tomorrow. Kevin and I will be here with you guys afterwards for the post-match show as usual. And I got a hard half an hour out that we're going to try to hit for Kev so that he can watch the game. I mean, joke's on you. I'm just going to spin my 70-inch TV so that it's right behind my computer and I'll keep you here for an hour and a half. Okay. Yes. Red Steve says Richard Lefebvre is on the Canadian 5-cent coin. Joke's on you,
If
Red
you know,
Steve.
you know. If
the
you know,
5-cent Canadian coin actually has a beaver on it.
It's got Paul Pescasolido on it.
No, he's on the quarter. He's on the quarter, not on the nickel. Come on, man. You don't know Canadian money at all. See, we're gonna have to do some homework over this, Kev.
Mate,
all right, Kev, my man. I will see you tomorrow, hopefully in celebration of a routine 1-0 Liverpool victory. Up the Reds. Thanks for joining us. See you, everybody.